Welcome, everybody, listeners. I am sitting here with a very special person. His name is Richard Silvia. Hello, Richard. Welcome to
Hi,
our
Dirk.
show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you today because Richard, I don't even know how we met one another somewhere online, but he sent me this wonderful book, The Grace of Redefining Love. And he even asked me to write something in there, which is actually, I feel very honored, Richard, that you did that. It's really cool to see my own words appear in a book that I love so much. It's a wonderful book, and what I especially found touching and remarkable is that for you guys who listen, it says to Dirk, thank you for inspiring my aliveness with possibility, in joy, and with curiosity. That's what Richard wrote in there. And the possibility and the curiosity, these are exactly the vibes that I get from you when I read the book by becoming open. You know, curiosity is by being open to things, not limiting things in a certain format, but just keeping it open. So I strongly felt that from reading when I was reading your book. And I mentioned, I think in the text that I wrote, it's not just a book, it's a little Bible of truth. That's how I feel what it is, because you can use it over and over again. It's really wonderful. So it's a beautiful job that you did. Um, I'm really curious what it was that inspired you to start writing The Grace of Redefining Love.
Well, the book itself has been coming to me about 20 years or so. And it came, in the beginning, it came through the music. I'm a musician and a songwriter. So, in little bits and pieces, it started to form. And then, about a year ago, 2 years ago, I met someone on the road, and she said to me, well, what is it that you want to do? And I said, well, I want to redefine love. And so that was actually when it started coming together in bits and pieces for me. And what I feel about, what is redefining love? Redefining love is just changing how we think about it. It's not, it's a word. So we need to look at what the word means to us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe a blunt question, but what's wrong with love?
There's nothing wrong with love. um,
what is the urge? So first of all, we need to define it before we can redefine it, I would say.
yeah. Well, I grew up thinking, or not thinking, but hearing a lot, being conditioned or being around family or friends or community or whatever, that um, love had conditions. Love was if you do this right, or if you follow, these instructions, or if you get an A in school, it it trans. I think the word love has too many conditions on it from our society. I think that I'm getting a brain freeze here.
No, it's what I find so fascinating about it, Richard, is that I keep having these discussions with people about whether love is conditional with humans or not. And I had this conversation 2 days ago again, and now we touch on the conditional part. Is it possible for humans, us as humans, to find or express love in an unconditional way, you think?
Well, I think that yes, and I think that as we evolve as humans, I think we're going to eventually, I guess I'll quote, say, become a new human
Yeah.
and a new humanity.
Hmm.
And how I see that is we are redefining what it is that we were taught for hundreds of years or maybe 1,000 years. We're shifting from materialism, being materialistic and um, into our spiritual nature, if you will.
Mhm.
Um, we're passing on our knowledge from. I'm having a hard time with this for some reason.
Well, that's interesting. What do you think is hard about it?
Um, I don't know. I don't know. It shouldn't be difficult. Um,
Well, should is maybe a big word because should is related to expectations.
yeah.
Um, what I really like about this part of our conversation is that um, it's apparently really hard to come up with something that is unconditional. That's what I feel because we live in a conditioned world full of conditions. This is how we have been raised, what you just said. So we have these expectations because we've been taught in a certain way that love or a relationship or just a connection with anybody or with nature, it always seems to be having some conditions about it. And so how do we move from something that we have been taught and it's still so foreign to us? How do we move to this free space where we want it to be, we crave for unconditional love? And so now we have to use our imagination. Now we have to tap into a deeper part of our heart that knows, of course, the unconditional love that we are craving.
I believe love is energy.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that, you know, we are energy. And that's, I think, when I say, you know, redefining love, you know, shifting from that place of judgment and condition to this is an energy that we're sharing between us. This is an energy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you write in the book, in all the chapters that you write, you relate love to certain skills or certain situations, and you write also about love and resilience. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
really curious about how do you see these two? How do you bridge these two?
Love and resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, if I go back to like 2012, and I had a series of losses, and I think for me, when um, the first thing that happened was I got back from vacation and I lost my job, and then a month later I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. So um, that set off a series of events for the next year that I had to look at, and initially I thought, okay, well, I'd get a job in 4 months and, you know, I'm trained and I can do X, Y, and Z. And so that didn't happen. And, you know, with the cancer thing, that went on, you know, treatment and um, going to see a doctor every 6 months. And so after, I think, experiencing loss, you know, and for a period of time, I think I had to stop and surrender. I feel like resilience to me is being able to surrender it as, you know, get down on your knees, just say I can't do anymore, you know, and then stay in bed for a day if you have to stay in bed, or get up and go to work for 3 hours and then go back to bed. Whatever you need to do to get through the initial period, um, until you start, you know, regaining your hope and your stride.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, I regained my um, the momentum by reading, by watching positive television shows, or meditating, by going to the gym, by praying, um, just being humble and grateful that we have today to get up and do something, to get up
Yeah.
and speak to somebody or read something It's truly a gift.
Hmm. So, and how do you bring the love in with the resilience? Because the chapter is about love and resilience.
Love and resilience. Well, I think for me, love is energy. So, what energy am I bringing to the space in life that I'm holding at this time? So, how am I showing up? How am I showing up for myself, and why? Why am I gonna? Where am I gonna go from here? And why am I gonna go from here? And do I want to do it differently, or do I want to do it the same that I've been doing it for 30 years? Well, I don't want to go back 30 years because obviously, my perception of that was it wasn't working. So, what energy, what self-love, what love for the world, what am I going to bring to the space that I hold today? I think that's what I'm looking at that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I was asking you about the resilience because, as I'm a heart math trainer, and it's all about resilience and to maintain your your inner energy levels. And yes, we sometimes just have to sit with it, or to go to bed, which you say, or whatever it is that we can do to get through this. And I've also learned through all the tools and techniques that we apply is that we can start creating this energetic field, which is pure. This is not just some kind of beautiful spiritual aspect of us, but it is pure science as well, where we have an influence on the electromagnetic field around our heart. And the more coherent that field is, the more resilient we become, the more we start riding the waves of life, so to speak,
yeah.
instead of trying to go in the opposite direction against against any other will or so it's important to stay in the flow of things, of course. This is basically, and if you look up resilience in the dictionary, you probably have done it as well. But resilience is basically related to bouncing back to its original shape. They use it in the airline industry when they test the strength of wings of an airplane, for example. I think I was very drawn to that chapter in your book. That's why I wanted to ask you a little bit about.
Yeah. So how do we bounce back? That I think that's
And it can be personal for everybody. We all have our own lives. We experience life in different ways. But we do have also this common denominator where our heart has this strong field around it. And this is basically how we are capable of balancing ourselves. Because if we start aligning our field, and I call our body, and then we align it with, let's say, the cosmic body, what I call it. So with the larger energetic field that we have, that we feel that we are part of around the world, when we truly align with that, when we become coherent, then that's how basically everybody can regain their resilience. It's a beautiful thing. It's just a very simple practice. But what you write in the chapter about resilience is very personal, and that's of course what I like so much about it, and that's what I like about your book, because you express it from Richard. It's not from some kind of overall concept. No, it's how you see and how you um, manage your own resilience. And that's why we are drawn to art. That's why we're drawn to certain music or books, because we want to get to know the artist, the author. And that's basically why I wanted to interview you, because that's how I became to know you better, just by reading your book, which is actually a beautiful thing. So you don't come up here with some kind of concepts. You truly apply it to very own personal experiences.
yeah. I think it is personal for for everybody. And I think that's the purpose of artists or musicians or physicians or philosophers, is everybody is bringing their own perspective to the table. So, what is resilience for me? How I did it. Get up in the morning and meditate for 20 minutes, and then pray, and then write, and then whatever. Somebody else may get up and go running for an hour, and then come home and have a conversation, or they may go to church. Somebody else may go to church, and whatever the person needs, I think is how we build resilience.
Yeah. And we are, of course, are very deeply connected. It's not that we create this own space of our personal resilience. Yes, we do, but we are also affected by other people's energies.
Yes.
And so we are not separate. And science confirms that, of course, over and over again. And that actually brings me to another chapter in your book where you talk about love and social connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are not here single individuals trying to have a good life and manage other people around us. We are very deeply connected. So what was the purpose of your chapter, Love and Social Connection?
Yeah. We're all the same. We're not separate from love. We're a part of love. So I feel that's our humanity's biggest lesson, perhaps, is that we're not separate. So it doesn't matter what color our skin is. It doesn't matter what country we come from. It doesn't matter if we're short, we're tall, or any of that. It just, it's compassion. It's empathy. It's looking at each other and saying, how can I help? How can we help make the world a better place? How can I make your life better? How can I teach you what you need to learn? What can I learn from you?
So if you how can we best embrace that? Because we feel intuitively that we live in a world that's very separated. And innately, there is this desire, this need, it's survival to connect with others in a deep way. This is how nature works, and we are nature. So what would be your suggestion? How can we best embrace this aspect, of social connection? How can we truly live that without it feeling artificial, or without we start feeling hurt or separated, because we might feel that we are just alone in this?
Yeah. I feel that the internet has been a blessing in that it's enabled us to connect in a certain way, like we're connecting right now, and that's how I met you. And so it's that in itself, technology is bringing people together, but it's also creating another separation, I think, in another way. It's easier for a lot of people to get on their phones and not make a human connection. Mm-hmm. So I think moving forward, it's building those bridges between technology and the human touch. Human touch physically, but also as a metaphor of going for a walk, or going to have dinner with somebody, or going to a conference, or tucking your children into bed at night. All of that stuff, that not becoming too busy in our careers, in our social, not becoming too busy with making money, I think, and to taking a step back and saying, well, then how can I connect? How can I connect better with my kids, or with my spouse, or with my neighbors? how can I think, what's my impact? You know, how are my actions impacting my environment, um, which is both people and the planet.
Hmm.
Being more aware
Yeah.
of what we're saying and how we're treating each other, I
Hmm.
think.
Yeah, I fully agree, and at the same time, what came up is that we want that. We have this deeper desire to go that way, but yet we're often being held back by fear,
Yeah.
fear of the unknown, maybe fear of being vulnerable, the
Mm.
fear of maybe not doing it well enough,
Hmm.
because we live in this very critical society.
Yeah.
So how could we overcome that fear?
Yeah. I think, fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough, fear
Mm.
of, if you were a kid and you were bullied, fear of being yelled at or being bullied or being, um, somehow beaten up again, you know?
Hmm.
So how do we overcome that? Um, Risk and being vulnerable. I think standing forward and bringing to your space what you can bring to it at the time,
Yeah,
being as authentic as you can with what you have,
yeah,
perhaps,
and it requires courage.
and it requires courage. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's pretty courageous to get out there and be vulnerable. And I've had many discussions with people about it, and especially with guys. Like it's not always easy
Mm,
to to share the deepest part of how you feel, because it might well be used against us. We never know, because it
yeah.
might have happened in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have your book there or not?
I do.
Yeah. Are you willing? Because there is one chapter, or there's a part in the beginning, I believe. It's kind of a brief, short part, and I was wanting to ask you to read that about your dream, about
Ah,
about your uncle, like the short version.
yeah. So, do you want me to just tell you about the dream, or do you want me to actually read the book?
Would you be willing to read that part and maybe
I
just
will.
explain why you found it was so important to have it in the book?
Yes. So it was a dream about my grandfather. So it was my
Oh,
grandfather
sorry. Yeah, grandfather.
came
Yeah, yeah.
dream, and I start with saying 2.5 years ago I had this dream. My grandfather came to me. The image was only his face, but I really think it was God. So in the visual that I had while I was dreaming was just this giant face coming toward me that looked like my grandfather, but it I don't. It was only later, like hours after I woke up, that I started rethinking it and writing it down. That I kind of made that connection that it was something divine. I say God, but it could be anything, angels, whatever people want to call it.
Yeah.
So no words were spoken. I felt only the most beautiful, complete love I had ever felt before. This love I speak of is divine love. So for me in the dream, um, it just took me over. It was I can't describe it. It was complete. It was complete. Um, let me go on.
Hmm.
It has not words nor form in the way we try and think, yet offers only inclusivity in joy and peace, and can only be best described as oneness. So I think, and I try to describe this to other people that I talk to, and I have a longer version of this as well. But it just to me said that it, it didn't say it just I feel I felt in my heart that there was so much more. I feel like in that state, if I could live in that state, that I could heal myself and I could heal whatever, I could heal the world, because I was a part of that at the time. I can't heal the world now in my little body space here on earth, but whatever it was that I connected to, that's what does heal. That's my interpretation of that. In the dream, I knew it was the energy that heals bodies and minds, and that makes planets spin and dolphins swim. It is the highest love. It is not the same love that we experience as a child or as a couple or as successful business people. No, it is definitely the love that spontaneously heals cancer and traumas and brings people back out of comas. It healed me, and it can end human suffering. It is a love that matters. And I've had when I say it healed me, I feel, and I still struggle with this because I want to believe this is true with my own cancer diagnosis, and that I'm fine now, and I don't know that, but I don't need to know all of that now. But the point I'm trying to make is that same feeling I had back in my 20s when I had lung surgery. I had an issue with my lungs and they kept collapsing, and I elected to have surgery. And I can't remember if it was before the surgery or after the surgery, and I had a dream, and in that dream I was laying at a table. It was in a stone room somewhere. It was like a round stone room, and this medicine man came up, didn't say anything, but just was like moving his arms and stuff. And I knew in that dream that I was then fine. Like I knew that. And I've been fine, knock on wood, ever since then. Mm-hmm. So it's the same connection. It's that divine connection that, I call it divine love. So it's that connection, whatever it is, I know it's real. I know because I've experienced it, and I can't explain it, but I can try to write about it, and I can try to create through my art and music and words and whatever. I can try to bring those messages or that through.
Yeah. And I felt it when I was reading it, and I felt it again when you were reading it now. And the reason why I actually wanted you to read it, because so now people can just experience for themselves. It's a really beautiful small part of what you write in your book about love, and it's very powerful. And this is probably getting back to unconditional love. Yeah. This is basically what it is about. This divine love. There is nothing attached to it. It just is, and it's very powerful, and it brings everything in alignment, which we call healing. Yeah. And we know it, and we don't have to explain it. And no. In order for us to express it, whether it's in music or through writing a book, of course we use a certain format. And I was really touched by it, and I think it's beautiful for people to realize that we are all part of that same energy, of that same love that created us in the first place. That was not an accident, and we slowly drift away from that during our lives. But sometimes we find it back in dreams. Sometimes we find it back in just spending some time out in nature and feel that. And
it's the field of possibility that we jump into, and we all have those experiences. And I think we can easily cast aside our experience. We do it all the time. Oh, that wasn't real, or synchronicity. Synchronicities happen, and we're like, oh, that it was a chance it was a fluke that we met, or it was a whatever. We just disregard it. And it's part of that field of opportunity, and it's part of that divine.
Yeah. I was writing a piece about that yesterday, where if we can't really understand why it's happening, we call it or like just a coincidence, or we say sometimes it's magic.
Yeah,
It's safer to label it
yeah,
for us in order to fully understand
yeah.
what it is or to
And
accept it.
people get afraid of that. You
Yeah,
know, we get afraid, um, of witches, or we get afraid of priestesses and all of this stuff. And it's this is what we're born of.
yeah,
We are all of this stardust energy. This is what
yes,
we are. This
yeah,
is what we are.
yes. Well, in the end of your book, you write quite a few life lessons,
Mm.
and you have many contemplations about life. Um, if you just go over briefly over your own contemplations, what is the most powerful one for you that touches you the most?
Mm. I think one of them is, the Dalai Lama said, "Never give up. Don't give up." And I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's the one of the strongest ones for me is don't give up. And that's what I tell people all the time. Never give up. You don't know what today's going to bring. You don't know what this moment or the next moment's going to bring.
Yeah,
You have a dream. Don't give up. Don't give up.
yeah, wonderful. So, if I want to conclude our brief conversation about the book, The Grace of Redefining Love, Expanding Life to Include Everything,
Yeah.
what would be your final thought? What would you want to share, with the listeners? A final
Well,
thought.
we are part of love. We're not separate from it. That's the first message. And the second message is we are safe, we are loved, we are enough, and we matter. So that's really the message I want to bring to anybody that I come in contact with, whether it's through my writing or whether it's through my music or whether it's an interview or a person on the street. It doesn't matter. We're all in this together. So
Beautiful, beautiful. So, is it easy for people to get to order a copy of your book online?
yes, you can go to yesrising.com and follow a link there.
Okay, I'll
Um,
provide the link. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, that's perfect. If people do have questions after our conversation, can they also get in touch with you through your website?
Abs- Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a contact page, and you can email me, or we'll get in touch that way. I'm on
Wonderful.
Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on
Okay.
Medium. I'm on all of
Okay.
that.
Well, just watch the links below this video then, and I want to thank you, Richard Silvia, the author of The Grace of Redefining Love. A beautiful book. I would definitely encourage you to pick up a copy because it's not just a book. It's something that you go over and over again, read it again, and you can use it as your little Bible of truth that I probably have written to you because that's how I feel what it is like. So thank you
You.
very, very much, Richard, for spending the time with me.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you. And if you have a next book coming up or another project, please let me know because we'll chat again.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.